Hello, everybody. Welcome to the celebration of International Women's Day. And I'm here to tell you today that you have something within you that will change, if not the world, it can change your world. And it's not just in some of us. In some of us, it might be just a quiet little glimmer at the moment. And for others of us, it might be a bright spark. But it's there and it's available to all of you. I've worked with people as leadership executives in big global corporates. I've worked with community leaders, and I've worked with people at rock bottom on the street, just picking themselves up. And I've seen the spark in all kinds of people. It can make a huge difference to your life. And as International Women's Day celebration, I want you to celebrate what's great inside you. And we're going to reflect on that, and I'm here today to help you find how you can make that spark shine bright. Now, Mark had a spark. I first met Mark when I was running a Future Leaders program for a big management consultancy. And as soon as he walked in the room, I noticed how people's faces lit up. And when he spoke, they sat up and they listened. They all wanted to be part of his world. And the funny thing was, it wasn't just him in this group of people. It was as if he was so inspiring. He was genuine, he was relaxed, he was easy to be around, and he inspired other people too. So the spark sort of spread. It wasn't just in him, it was in Kira, it was in Ben, it was in Thomas. All the people that surround him started to sort of get energized as well. The spark was so contagious. I was going to make a bad joke about the coronavirus, but I won't. I'll leave that one out. But it was pretty contagious, and it spread, and it spread in a good way. So I just want you to imagine an organisation in which everyone could shine in this way. Just imagine in your own team, or just within yourself, what a difference it would make in the way people felt confident to sort of collaborate, to innovate, to be productive, when they can allow that spark to shine, and really just the sheer fun of it. And that's why I was really devastated when, a few months later, I went back to the same organisation, and Mark walked in through the door, and he was just a shadow of his former self. He had a sort of grey pallor, and the light had gone out in his eyes, and he just wasn't having that impact around him. And I said to him, Mark, what happened to you? And he explained to me that over the last few months, he had started to struggle with some personal things, and he struggled with things at work. And the pressure had built up. And as the pressure built up, he started to feel that pervasive sense of anxiety. And that anxiety sometimes erodes that energy within us. That anxiety led to reactive behaviours. He got into bad habits. Instead of stepping back and taking a breath, he was firefighting all his work. He was just responding. He got short-tempered. He wasn't looking after himself. He was going to bed late. He was working too hard. He was sort of drinking, or he was on social media. He just wasn't in a good place. And finally, he said, I've started to limit myself. I've started to kowtow to the limiting beliefs people have of me, rather than believing anything's possible and enjoying life. I'm just sort of playing along, playing small. Now, this is what I call the shadow side of the spark. So this is the way people struggle and self-sabotage themselves, feel the pressure of life, of work, develop a sense of anxiety, get reactive to the world around them, and start kowtowing to these eroding, limiting ideas of who we can be. And this happens all too often in life, and it happens with people all the time. And for some people, it can ebb away slowly. I don't know whether it's happened to you or whether you can relate to this, but it can be like a slow seeping erosion, and you just don't feel like the person you once did. You no longer feel that life and that energy. For other people, it can happen just because of a life event. It can just happen all of a sudden, smash, and then your spark just gets reduced to a glimmer. I know what it's like personally to lose my spark and to have to regain it. And along the way, I've learnt various things in my own struggle and my own search to regain my spark. And that was why when I saw it in Mark, I said, I can help you. And I worked with him over the next few months, and I'm happy to say he's now shining brightly back to his former self. But it was a strong struggle, an arduous struggle. But I'd like to share with you, through my own story, what we did together to regain that spark, in case some of it's useful for you. It all began on a rainy Tuesday morning, typical Tuesday morning like any other. It was 11 a.m. I'd just come out of a client session. I was a mindset and performance coach, and I was also a clinical hypnotherapist. And the telephone rang. It wasn't another client. It was the BBC 1 o'clock news. Can you come in and talk to us? They said. When? 1 o'clock. What, today? Yeah, we'll send round a car. So I went, okay. So they wanted to talk to me about Hypno Birthing childbirth education, which is a form of childbirth which I'd brought over from the States to the UK, and I'd worked with the first couple that had had their baby using this methodology. Has anyone heard of Hypno Birthing? Yeah. You've done it. Fantastic. Excellent. Well, so for those of you, sometimes the dads do get involved. Makes them feel they've got something to do in the role. So I did work with couples. In fact, one dad did say to me, this stuff is so good, I'm going to use it in my next marathon. So let's hope he didn't have a baby on the way. But anyway, hypnobirthing is a focusing technique. It's about trusting your body in the natural process of childbirth so that you can cope no matter what happens. Even if medical intervention is necessary, your mindset is such that you're feeling relaxed and you're feeling calm, which lets go of a lot of the unnecessary nervous tension of childbirth, that extra tension, because our womb is just a muscle, so all that extra tension makes it very difficult. But if you can go into any situation in your life feeling, I've got this, I can cope with this. No matter what happens, I can maintain my calm and my presence of mind. Then it's a really fantastic skill. So you know that great advice you give people, stay calm. And there I was in the 1 o'clock studio, makeup all done, sitting there. Anna Ford was reading the news over there, and I was waiting to go on, and I got a case of the what-ifs. What if I freeze up? What if I can't think what to say? What if this all goes wrong? What if I say something stupid? What if? And my breathing went, and my heart started beating, and I suddenly thought, what am I doing? I am the person that teaches people to stay calm and relaxed and focused. And yet here I was with quite a lot of unnecessary nervous tension. Anyway, I said to myself, okay, breathe deeply. Let your heart beat slowly. You've got this. You can do this. You know what you're doing. And soon I was in this calm, relaxed, hypnobirthing bubble as I floated over to Anna Ford. Now, Anna Ford was a seasoned war correspondent. She had aggressive political interviews. She could handle anything. And yet here was this woman floating over in this bubble. And it might have been my imagination, but I could have sworn there was a flicker of something on her, like, what the heck's coming over here? Anyway, the interview went well, and I loved talking about women's empowerment. I loved helping women feel that they could trust themselves and trust the process. And to cap it all, I was looking forward to having my own first baby. So I was going to have my own hypnobirth. I was on top of the world, but little was I to know that it was all going to come crumbling down. So we went along to the 20-week scan, the midway scan, looking forward to showing people our little image. You know those black and white images that people show, ultrasound images? Everyone's baby looks the same, but you go, look at my lovely baby, it looks so different from everyone else's. Anyway, so I was looking forward to that, and as I lay there with my swollen belly, I tried to crane my neck to see what the ultrasound technician was finding, and she sort of put the scanning probe around my belly, but she turned the screen away. And I said, what's wrong? She said, can you go and wait outside, please? So we went and waited outside, and we looked at each other and thought, what's going on? And then the consultant came in and said, I'm very sorry, but due to a very rare complication, your fetus has died, your baby has died, and more cells have been replicated. You're going to have something called the removal of contents of pregnancy, RCP. The bottom fell out of my world. It just made no sense. I didn't even have a body to bury. And I just railed at God. I just thought, how can this be fair? I've been helping people to trust in their bodies. I've been doing something good. How can this make sense? Is it wrong for me to trust? And I lost my complete faith in myself. I lost my focus. I lost my way. I lost my identity. I gave away my business. I couldn't carry on with it. And as you know now, Hypno Birthing's everywhere. But then I just went, I don't want anything to do with it. My relationship fell apart because we were grieving in different ways. And I moved out, and I didn't know what to do next with myself. It was a very dark time. Everything was dark. I didn't know which way was up, which way was down. And I needed an escape. Fortunately, I've got some friends. A friend works in the yachting industry as a cook. And she said, will you come and sail across the Atlantic with me? Come and help take this boat there. And it was just the escape I needed. I got on this boat, and while we travelled across the Atlantic, the sky was incredible. There were beautiful cloud formations and sunsets and whales and dolphins, and this soothed my soul, just to be away from it all. I could pretend nothing in London had happened. Here I was, a new person. And it was so beautiful and so enriching. It really kind of soothed my soul. And then we arrived in the Caribbean, and I skivvied on boats. I worked, I cooked, I was a deckhand. And I could just pretend I was a different person. But there's a saying, wherever you go, there you are. And I couldn't run away from myself forever. And when I got back to London, reality came crashing back. So there must have been some little glimmer in me that said this was still worth a shot. Because I thought, if I'm going to solve this, instead of running away from myself, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to leave no stone unturned. Despite all my hopes and fears being smashed against the rock, I'm going to discover who I am, because I never want this senselessness to overwhelm me again. I really want to understand what I'm about. But I needed someone good to help me. And I was lucky enough to find a maverick Maori who became my mentor. He made me question the very foundations of who I thought I was and my entire belief system. He was challenging, he was difficult, but he was brilliant. And he was also a master at metaphors of the subconscious. So, you know, like, I don't know whether you've heard of Churchill used to talk about his black dog of depression. He didn't have a literal black dog. It was just a kind of metaphorical black dog that prowled around in his psyche. And I had this wall. I said, I don't want to go behind that wall. We're not going there. No, I don't want to go there. So anything that kind of existed behind that wall, I'd say, no, don't want to go there. Maybe you've got a wall. It's quite a common thing where there are places you just don't want to go, and that was mine. And he said, great, let's honour that. And he helped me. I drew, it was a stone wall, and I drew each stone, and I blue tacked each stone to a real wall, and I created that wall. And he said, right, you can honour that wall. What do you want to do with it now? And I said, I think I'd like to see what's behind that wall. So I went to each stone, and in my imagination, I sort of found different aspects of myself that I could deal with as I was comfortable. And then behind one stone, there I found the bones of my baby, my unborn baby. He said, what do you want to do with that? And I said, I want to bury it safe in my heart. And so I painted a heart, and I put a little cross, and there the bones of my baby could lie safe. And that was so transformative. After doing that, I felt that I no longer was detached from it. The baby could lay to rest inside me, and my life began to change. Now, my life had been on hold for a long time, but I realised that now that I had developed this self-understanding, I could help other people through their own struggles. So this is the way you turn the first S of Spark, the struggle, and self-sabotage into self-understanding. So you think about those daily struggles that we all have, like the piece of cake that you want to eat, but you also want to lose weight. Or you want to go to the gym, but you also want to have a lie-in. And then there are the more severe struggles that people have. Severe drug and alcohol addiction. And a big part wants to use, and a big part also desperately wants to be sober because their life is coming apart. And I saw that I could help people because I'd gone deep within myself. I found that I was able to help other people on their own life journeys, to develop their own self-understanding, to begin to make change. But I was suffering from the P of Spark. I had pressure on me. I put pressure on myself to say, get on with your life. You were doing that Hypno Birthing stuff. It was brilliant. You had a purpose. It was great. Now go and find something else to do. And so I thought, well, I can help people in drug and alcohol recovery and help people to develop that self-understanding. And so soon I was working with people, making really big transformations in their own life. It was wonderful to see. People who'd had their children taken into care would get them back. People who'd been on the streets would start to have homes. People's lives transformed. And it was so rewarding. It did give me a real sense of purpose. In fact, I bumped into one guy a few years later, and he said, there's the woman that taught me to smile again. She gave me back my smile, and that was just lovely to work with people in that way. The problem was, for me, that I'd got myself into a place where I was working with other people, and I believed in their change, but after 5 years, my life was on a perpetual cycle. I wasn't changing anymore. I was believing in other people's ability to have a wonderful life. But I was working in a small room for some small charities, just with a few people, and I just felt, I think I've got a bigger purpose than this. I think I've got more impact to make in the world. I think there's something for me to do. I mean, it's wonderful working here, but I'm stuck. And the other thing that started to happen, in fact, I need to go to turn your pressure into purpose. But my purpose was not quite fit for purpose, because financially the charities couldn't pay much, so I was struggling. I was serving other people, but I wasn't really serving and looking after myself. You know that thing they always say in airlines, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. I was busy kind of putting the oxygen mask on others, but I wasn't really moving, and I had that sense that there was more to come. Finally, I started to struggle financially. The financial pressure was too much, and I was depleted and exhausted. So I stopped, and I took a £7 an hour telesales job. So there I was with years of postgraduate education, having committed myself to being the best agent of change I could be, following a script on the phone. I mean, it was a really low point. And I just thought, where's this going to go? I've squandered my life. I've squandered my all the opportunities, everything I've invested in myself, and here I am, just following a script. And then my brother came to stay, and my brother, something about him coming, he'd had the same life as me, all the same opportunities, and yet he was living in Hong Kong, he was, had a successful career, and his life was going ahead, and it just made me think, I'm just useless. I have just made a complete failure of my life. Everything that I've done, I've just gone and ruined. And I said, do you want a cup of tea? And I escaped to the kitchen, and there he found me, stirring my cup of tea, tears streaming down my face, my body sobbing. He said, what's wrong? And I explained to him what had happened, and I said, I'm in a real hole. I don't even know how I'm going to pay my bills or how I'm going to put food on the table. I'm just completely useless. I made a complete mess of my life, and I've no idea how I'm going to get out of it. And then I don't know whether you've ever had this, but someone says something to you that at first glance seems really horrible, but actually it's the kindest thing they could have said. My brother said to me, I could help you, but I'm not going to. Thanks, brother. he said, because you are one of the most amazing people I know, and if I help you, you won't realise that you can get yourself out of this. You've got to turn that anxiety into appreciation. He said to me 3 things. Number 1, you've got to appreciate all you've got within you. All the assets, all the resources you have within yourself. You're capable of so much more than you even realise. Number 2, you've got to appreciate all the people you know, the people that can help you, or the people you don't yet know, but there are people out there that can guide you, can point you in the right direction, can give you a leg up, can help you in the way you need to. And thirdly, he said, you've got to appreciate that there are lots of different ways forward for you, not just one. Get out of that idea that there's just one way forward. There are lots of ways. So I thought, okay, I'm going to break a habit of a lifetime and get myself a job. I'd never actually been employed before. I'd always been a freelancer, a contractor, doing my own thing. But I didn't have a CV, and I didn't really know how to go about getting a job. I didn't even think that any of my skills were transferable. But I did have one person that I could turn to when I think about the people I can appreciate in my life. Trisha. She had worked in HR, and she said to me, you've got lots of transferable skills, let me help you write a CV. So we wrote a CV, we scoured the job pages, we found jobs I could do, and I went along to some interviews. And at one, it was a local pension fund. I mean, obviously I wasn't desperate about the job, but I was desperate for a job. So I went along, and she said, the MD who was interviewing me stopped the interview halfway and went, what the heck are you doing here? And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, I could tell as soon as you walked in the lift that you're articulate, you're educated, you shouldn't be in a place like this. Go and get yourself a job, you know, a decent job somewhere. And I kind of went, well, just give me a job. But anyway, it did sort of sow a few seeds. But inevitably, old habits die hard. And if you want to change your life, you've got to do things in new ways. And I fell into the old reactivity, the old knee-jerk reactions, doing what I'd always done. So this brings me to the R of Spark. Instead of reacting, you have to make a considered response. Reacting is when you do things the way you've always done them. Responding is where you stop, you take a breath, you go, how can I create a new way forward? How can I do things differently? Anyway, I knew this guy who said to me, will you come and help me on my scheme? I'm helping disadvantaged and vulnerable people get work in the city. He worked for one of the big 4 accountancy firms, and he was on a salary of God knows what millions every year, and he said, come and help me pro bono on your scheme. And what did I say? Yeah, sure, I'll come and work for free. I've got no job, but I'll come and work helping disadvantaged people get work in the city. So there we were in the middle of this meeting in his plush office, and I suddenly stopped it and went, you know, I'm actually the person here that is disadvantaged and needs a job. And he went, oh, why didn't you say? Give me your CV and I'll put it in. So he put my CV in, and they offered me a job. And I went along. I had to go to 3 interviews for this job. I wore the same threadbare suit to all 3, and it was as much as I could do not to self-sabotage myself and talk them out of it. I kind of wanted to say to them, like, you don't want me. I'm not quite a proper person to be doing this job. But anyway, I got the job. And I loved it. Soon I was heading up all the events and all the relationship development activities. I was working with the partners to develop relationships with key figures in banks and in the city. And I was running all the speaker-led activities and corporate hospitality. And I noticed something really interesting. I noticed that the leaders who really thrived had that special something about them. These leaders were energized, engaged, and enthused. They inspired other people around them. They were quick to build connections. They developed trust and loyalty, and people wanted to work for them. Their teams performed better, and they worked much better with stakeholders and clients. They had that special something. And then there was another group of people that I saw that were sadly just, they're wonderful people, but they just didn't have that spark. It was just, you know, they'd given up, they'd be going through the motions at work, they weren't engaged, they didn't feel good. And that's when I had my own spark of insight. I thought, this is my purpose. This is my purpose, to help create organisations in which everyone can shine, and to help individuals to find that spark and help that spark to shine. So you're probably wondering, well, at that point what I did was I left and I set up my own business, Vivacity. And the strapline is to bring life to work and work to life. So you're probably wondering what the K is at this point. So I've talked about Kow-Towing. That's where you limit yourself from what you can do. But the way to change it is to develop know-how. Think about what you can do. Don't limit yourself. Who can you be? And then develop the know-how to be that person. Now, if I was going to make my purpose, my dream, my mission a reality, I would need to learn how to design and to deliver workshops and training courses. I would need to learn how to speak on a stage. There's lots of things I needed to do. So I got to work, and I also needed to find out and build up research for this model that I was developing. So I worked with hundreds of people over the next hundreds of different groups over the next few years, and developed this. And that was where I met Mark. And in fact, I went back recently to the same organisation where I met Mark, remember, with his spark. And he was now the sponsoring leader of that management consultancy Future Leaders programme. And he was shining as bright as ever, but he was there saying, not on my watch is anyone going to lose their spark. He was there making sure that those bright young future leaders that came in were going to shine as much as they could. So I developed my know-how, and then I got to work writing my book. And that was really pivotal for me, because something about putting your thoughts down on paper or, you know, out there in the world in a way that, you know, you can't hide anymore. People take that and then they can make what they like with those words. And putting that down really helped me develop my voice. And I'd say for you, you know, particularly on International Women's Day, but generally, don't be afraid to have your voice heard. Too many women, too many people will keep quiet, will think, you know, what's my particular opinion? What's my particular view worth? Well, your view is worth a lot. You've each got a very unique way of experiencing the world. You've all got your own unique stories and ideas and takes on things, and that's valuable. And the other thing is, it made me visible in a way that I hadn't been before. So as I started to write my book, and that spark got stronger and stronger within me, I found something else was growing inside me too. And on the 19th of March 2014, I gave birth. I had my own hypno birth, and I gave birth to a happy baby boy. I'd like to, thank you. So it was a long labour, 36 hours because it was induced, but it was in a water birth, and it was a beautiful experience. And I'd like to introduce you to Jamie. There he is last week. Jamie loves Star Wars. So I gave him a lightsaber, and he went, "Mummy, it doesn't work." And I said, that's because sometimes you need the darkness to see the light. And the batteries, yeah. New set of batteries. Now, you remember that... you remember that the guy I said who I gave him back his smile, who said I gave him back his smile? There was something else he said to me. He said, "Do you know what God stands for?" And I said, "No." He said, "Stands for the gift of despair." I didn't understand that at the time, but I do now. Because it means it's those times in life where we have our darkest times. I mean, I may have given him back his smile, but he taught me to find my own light in the darkness in a way. He taught me to see it in that way. That those moments that we have in our life that are just simple can be so beautiful. Those tiny moments that warm our heart. So as a reminder, here's the spark, self-understanding from struggle and self-sabotage. Turn pressure into purpose. Turn your anxiety into appreciation. Turn those reactive habits into responsiveness. And turn that Kow-Towing into know-how. So I'm just going to ask two things of you today. Who's familiar with this? I'm sure you've seen this before. The yin and yang symbol. Just remember that in those darkest times, you may find the greatest light. I call this the diamond in the shit, actually. It's that those times when life is really hard, there is some light right in the centre of it. So I'm going to ask two things of you today. Number one is, please nurture that spark in you. Please notice what it is in your life that you need to do on a daily basis or a weekly basis, a monthly basis, that will nurture that spark in you. So for me, I love painting. So I go to oil painting every week. I love Zumba and a bit of dancing. So I make sure I do that in my week. I go swimming. Every now and again, if I can, I get out in nature. And I love being with people with whom I can have enriching conversations or just a laugh. And I love being with my son and helping nurture his spark. So what is it in your life you need to do to nurture your own spark? And the second thing I'm going to ask of you is, please let your light shine. Where are you hiding your light? Just notice where you could speak out, you could stand up, you could have your voice heard, where you could be visible. Please stop hiding your light. Because as Marianne Williamson said, we're all meant to shine as children do. And by letting our own light shine, we unconsciously give permission to other people to do the same. So I hope my story has ignited some kind of spark in you today. And even if it's just in a small way or a big way, that you just go out into the world and make your own difference. That's all I ask of you. And I'd like you just to nurture that very special life force that's within you. The spark of life. Thanks very much for listening.